Coming up on College Vision News, important information for students and staff at Bates Technical College, a presentation on the development of blood special effects in film production, an interview with the director of the Online Learning Center, our regular student showcase featuring the work of Duke Punkasem, and a look at Central Texas barbecue. Stay tuned. College Vision News is next. Hello and welcome to College Vision News. I'm Roland Robinson. We begin the show with the latest news and information for the staff and students at Bates Technical College. The college has announced it will be a vaccinated college effective at the beginning of fall quarter. In an email message to members of the college community, Bates President Lynn Zhou said, "After careful consideration, reviewing the governor's proclamation and the recommendation of the COVID task force, we have decided to make Bates a vaccinated college effective at the start of fall quarter when the faculty return to campus on Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. Thus, employees and students are required to receive COVID-19 vaccinations to return to campus without a mask or physical distancing protocols. According to the proclamation, we will offer incentives to help students get vaccinated and provide exemptions for individuals' medical, religious, or philosophical reasons." Further details are being worked out by the Bates COVID-19 Task Force, and a town hall meeting was hosted by the task force on July 28th to present the plan to the college community. One of the vaccination incentives offered students the opportunity to win a $1,000 scholarship to be used for tuition and other education-related expenses. A random drawing of all students enrolled in spring quarter, but not completing their coursework by the end of spring quarter, resulted in 10 lucky students being named as winners. The selected students will have to show proof of vaccination before they will receive the money. The name of the winners are Laquan Spencer, Lisa Daly, M.K. Zhang, Immaculate Wamuti, John Teal, Ezekiel Escoto Behrens, Jacqueline Jameson, Colin Oakley, Trevor Walker, and Benjamin New. Congratulations to the winners. Central Campus is home to several career training programs, but students haven't always had easy access to some of the services available on other campuses. This quarter, some efforts have been made to change that and make certain resources more readily available. Every Wednesday, a representative from financial aid, the library, and advising will be physically present and available to meet with and work with Central Campus students. Alex Nicholas from Financial Aid and Dan Eberly, who is the Career Training Advisor for all Central Campus programs, will be working in the Building B administration area, and Michelle Reed or Mike Wood from the library will be in the second floor library space. Students are encouraged to meet personally with any of these people and to take advantage of the services they offer. A number of Bates employees have retired or will retire in 2021. Originally, a drive-through celebration was planned to honor them, but due to the easing of COVID restrictions, those plans have changed. They will now be honored in person on Tuesday, August 3rd from 2 to 3 p.m. at the South Campus Courtyard. Light refreshments and music will be provided. The retirees are Ken Lee, who started with the college in 1984, Art Cutting, 1992, Larry Minetti, 2002, Ron Reed, 2005, Pat Normando, 2008, Barry Young, also 2008, Paula Emerson Glade, 2009, Joe Lyon, 2014, and Chuck Davis, 2019. To each and every retiree, congratulations and thank you for your contributions to Bates Technical College. This from a report published at southsoundbusiness.com. The Board of Directors of the American Association of Community Colleges, the AACC, has appointed Bates Technical College President Lynn Zhou to serve on its Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. Dr. Zhou and other commission members are tasked with implementing a joint diversity, equity, and inclusion statement from the AACC and the Association of Community College Trustees, the ACCT. The AACC is the primary advocacy organization for the nation's community colleges. The association represents nearly 1,200 two-year associate degree granting institutions and more than 12 million students. The ACCT is a nonprofit educational organization of governing boards that represent more than 6,500 elected and appointed trustees who govern more than 1,200 community, technical, and junior colleges in the United States and beyond. Dr. Zhou said, "I am extremely humbled and honored that the Board of Directors of American Association of Community Colleges has appointed me to the Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity. This opportunity will help me continue the important work of ensuring equitable, diverse, and inclusive educational opportunities for all students." And that's your staff and student news for this week. Technology marches on. One of the challenges in the broadcasting and video production field is to keep up with the latest changes in the equipment and procedures used to produce and deliver content. In the Emerging Technologies class this quarter, students have been investigating topics that interest and challenge them. In this week's Tech Report, Dennis McLaughlin looks at something that is perhaps not what one normally thinks of when talking about technology. Here's his report on blood.
Blood. Some people have it, some people want it, and some movie directors love to use it. Theatrical stage blood has been around since 1897 at the Grand Guignol, which is French for theater of puppets. Typically, at this point in time, theatrical blood was made of a simple, thrown-together recipe of vegetable glycerin and red dyes. This short video from The Great Big Story does a great job explaining the brief history of theatrical blood.
In movies like Carrie, blood comes by the buckets. Perfecting that red gooey mess took a long time and several different recipes. This is the story of how fake movie blood is made. Back before film and TV, a simple red handkerchief on stage symbolized blood, but it was kind of boring. So some theaters upped the ante by boiling a bug known for its red pigment. They used the cochineal bug because it creates red dye. When black and white movies came along, pigment didn't matter, so Hollywood simplified things by using chocolate syrup. Then in the 1930s, when black and white movies turned to color, Hollywood needed a new blood trick. Enter John Tyngate, a retired pharmacist living in England. He concocted the most realistic-looking blood yet, called Kensington Gore, using a combination of mostly golden syrup, food coloring, corn flour, and water. The most famous of the blood recipes, though, comes from a man named Dick Smith. He came up with something on par with a Julia Child recipe. The catch? His recipe was poisonous. One ingredient, Kodak Photo Flow, is deadly when consumed. So people started replacing the poison with creamer and other items that won't kill you. Today, a lot of the fake blood you see on screen is computer generated, but if you want to be legit, it should be poison or bugs.
Today, the tradition of bloody stage performances is continued with such acts as the musical group GWAR. Formed in the late 80s, the group sought to shock the world with violent lyrics, grotesque costumes, and live performances like none other. GWAR uses hundreds of gallons of blood per night to spray the crowd, performers, and the venue. On a smaller scale, haunted houses throughout America use fake blood on actors, props, and sets. I can tell you from experience, it does not taste good. More commonly today, CGI blood is used to film due to its cheap cost and no cleanup. This is not to say fake blood is not being used. 2020, It Chapter 2 used a record-breaking 4,500 gallons of fake blood for just one scene. For scale, the blood-filled elevator in The Shining only used about 300 gallons.
Thanks, Dennis,
Blood.
for your presentation. COVID-19 has had a tremendous impact on education, with most schools almost instantaneously changing from in-person to online instruction. Bates Technical College finished the winter quarter of 2020 as a mostly on-campus, in-person institution, and 2 weeks later started the spring quarter as a totally online institution. One college department, the Online Learning Center, has been instrumental in helping instructors make that very dramatic change. Tim Tressler is the director of the Online Learning Center. Tim joins us today to talk about the work of the OLC and the overall concept of online learning. Welcome, Tim. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I want to start out by asking you, what's your job been like for the last 18 months?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, it's been a little bit hectic and a little bit crazy, and probably a lot hectic and crazy, actually. We probably doubled or tripled the amount of classes we offered online. More than that, we probably increased by 10 times the amount of content that we had. So stuff that just had a little bit of content is now completely online, or something where an instructor may have just put a syllabus on is now putting complete lectures in. So we've helped a lot with that. A lot more phone calls, a lot more assistance that we needed. But what I like to remind people is our mission is still the same. So yes, there's a lot more volume. Yes, there's a lot more people and new people who are needing assistance, but we're still trying to help students get into their classes, navigate them successfully, and help the instructors build the best possible class that they can, with a real focus, as you talked about. A lot of people had to throw stuff up in a short period of time, so real focus on that continuous improvement. There was a lot of stuff that people did in March where they've improved it over the last 18 months to make it a much better class.
So what can students do to be successful in an online learning environment?
Well, I think there's two answers to that. The first is obvious. Do the stuff you would do in any environment. Show up, be on time, be prepared, do your homework, don't cheat. That's important in an online environment. So yeah, do the same stuff you would do in any class. But the second thing I would say is talk to the specific thing that's involved with online and with this transition we've had. We've got a lot of data that's come out, a lot of student surveys that have been done nationwide, and one of the things that we're finding is students are actually struggling in what I would call academic adjacent issues. So yes, some people are finding it difficult to complete their class. Some people may have bad Wi-Fi or a computer that doesn't work well, things like that. But the biggest responses that people say when they're asked, what am I struggling with, are things like, I don't have a quiet place to do my homework. I don't have time. I'm helping my kids with their schoolwork. I'm trying to hold down the fort, and then I'm trying to do my Bates work at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I'm just exhausted. So I think what I would say to those people is, first of all, understand you're not the only one going through this. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing weird about what's going on. Over a third of all respondents said something similar to that in the last survey that I read. So it's a very common thing. And so because of that, reach out for assistance, whether that's to family, friends, someone like that, and absolutely reach out to your instructor. Your instructor can't help you if he doesn't know what you're going through, or she doesn't know what you're going through. So say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or I need some time assistance, something like that. Let your instructor know what you're struggling with, and they'll be happy to reach out and work with you.
What kind of resources are available to students?
If they're running any problems or just need some assistance, the best and most obvious way to get help is to contact us directly. Since we're working from home, email's the best, olc@batestech.edu, and also they can call us at 253-680-7233, and so they can contact us directly. The other thing I would really point students to is if they're in a Canvas class, in the left-hand corner of their navigation window, when they're in Canvas, they're going to see a link that says Bates Help and Community Resources. And if they click on that link, we've really tried to load up as many resources and assistance as possible for the students, whether it's things like mental health counseling, the CARES Act, which can give them money towards school, community resources for things like childcare, rent assistance, or it's just basic things like a YouTube video showing them how to upload a document on an assignment or see their instructor feedback. We've really tried to load that up with as much assistance as possible.
Excellent. How about instructors? What can they do to be successful in online learning environment?
Well, the first thing I would say is keep doing what they're doing. I've worked with a lot of Bates instructors, and the feedback I hear almost universally is the instructors are improving their courses, they're making them better, but more than that, they're really trying to be as flexible as possible with the students. Contacting them directly, finding out what's going on if students aren't there. So please keep doing that. It is definitely appreciated. The other thing that I would say is just work on that continuous improvement, whether we're talking about the quality of the class, whether we're talking about the accessibility of the class, maybe it's using new technology, varying your assignments. Just every quarter kind of sit there and go, okay, that was a pretty good class, but what can I do to make it better in fall 2021? Not overhaul it completely. Most people don't want to do that, don't have the bandwidth for that, but maybe just make a change or two or a tweak or two.
We have about 30 seconds left here, Tim. Tell me about your work as a co-chair of the Accessibility Committee.
It's something I'm really excited about. What I would say to everybody there is sometimes people think the accessibility people is just for people, you know, with canes and dark glasses or who can't hear, things like that. Yes, that's part of it, but what we want to do is make Bates accessible for everyone, meaning find the way that they can best learn. What I would suggest is they communicate with their instructor if there's something. You know, if they say, hey, I have hearing loss, can you get those videos captioned for me? Or I've got bad vision, those presentations you're doing, there's bad color contrast. I really struggle reading those. So make sure your instructor's aware of that and they can reach out to us and we can get you assistance.
All right, thanks so much for joining us, Tim, and for everything you're doing for the college and for, on my behalf, the faculty helping us through this transition. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Still to come, in our student showcase, we'll meet Edwin Armstrong, and we'll finish up with a look at Central Texas barbecue. Stay tuned. Welcome back to College Vision News. One of the fascinating studies in the development of broadcasting and video production is that of the visionary people who invented and developed the tools of the industry. One of those people was Edwin Armstrong, an American electrical engineer and inventor who had a tremendous impact on broadcasting. Earlier this year, BVP student Duke Punkasem researched the life and accomplishments of Edwin Armstrong. Here's his report.
Edwin Howard Armstrong was an American inventor who aided in the advancement of broadcasting and electronic circuitry as we know it today. His most notable and innovative technologies were the regenerative and superheterodyne circuits in frequency modulation, or FM radio. His circuits in FM would go on to become the technology that would usher in the next stage in broadcasting. Though Armstrong's technology was revolutionary and would eventually prevail, it was met with logistical, infrastructural, and legality issues. His strong suit was being an inventor as opposed to being a businessman. Today, we will look at the trials and tribulations in the life of Edwin H. Armstrong and how he became one of the great pioneers of broadcasting. Armstrong was born on December 18, 1890 in New York, to John and Emily Armstrong. When Armstrong was just 8 years old, he contracted a rheumatic fever that forced him to be pulled out of school for 2 years. Upon recovery, this rheumatic fever would leave him with a twitch or a tic that would usually occur when he was stressed or excited. His withdrawal from school led him to develop an interest of solitary activities such as tennis and fast cars. But his true passion would be for mechanical and electrical contraptions. At the age of 14, he read the exploits of Marconi and Faraday, and that inspired him to become an inventor. He started building crystal sets and even erected a large antenna tower in the garden of his parents' home. Most of his research would be conducted in the attic of said home. Once Armstrong graduated from Yonkers High School, he would attend Columbia University and join the electrical engineering department in 1909. In his junior year at Columbia, he created the first radio amplifier. He did this by extensively studying and redesigning Lee DeForest's original Audion that was created in 1906. The original design detected and amplified weak radio signals, but Armstrong's design was able to amplify the signals more than 1,000-fold. A signal of that gain was still only able to be heard across a room. Though the new output of the signal only covered a small distance, this was revolutionary for the time. This was the birth of the regenerative circuit. He graduated in 1913 with his BA in engineering. The following year in 1914, he patented his creation and licensed it to Marconi. Later, DeForest would take Armstrong to court over a series of corporate patent suits over the invention. DeForest claimed the idea was his, but never made any further advancements or patents to his Audion, the way Armstrong had. This would go on for over 14 years before the U.S. Supreme Court would rule in favor of DeForest. The scientific community did not accept the verdict and sided with Armstrong. As the U.S. joined World War I, Armstrong joined the U.S. Army Signal Corps and was sent to France. He served there as a captain and was later promoted to the rank of major. In Paris, he was tasked with developing a system that could detect and hear shortwave enemy communications. This led to the creation of a second notable invention, the superheterodyne circuit. It was capable of greater receiving, selectivity of frequencies, and amplification of weak high-frequency signals. The circuit can still be found in every tuner in today's radios, TVs, and radars. Post-war, Westinghouse would buy Armstrong's patent for the circuit and start the nation's first radio station, KDKA, in Pittsburgh. In 1923, Armstrong married Marion McInnes, secretary to the president of the Radio Corporation of America, David Sarnoff. RCA then bought up all of Westinghouse's radio patents, which gave Armstrong a large sum of cash and stock in the 1920s. He would then go back to teach at Columbia University as an assistant to his former professor, Michael Pupin, whose professorship he later inherited. As a professor financing his own research, Armstrong's next endeavor would be to eliminate static from radio. In 1933, Armstrong secured 4 patents on advanced circuits that would become FM radio. This new system was a transformation of the way information gets from a transmitter to a receiver. Instead of varying the amplitude of radio waves to carry voice or music, this new method varied the number of waves per second over a wide band of frequencies. Armstrong had finally created the world's first method of high-fidelity broadcasting, another revolutionary breakthrough, but it was not without its issues. It was impossible to use Armstrong's wideband FM system at the time, since the new system required a new type of transmitter and consumer receiver. Armstrong first demonstrated this new method between 1933 and 1934 to David Sarnoff and the engineers of RCA. When RCA failed to show an interest in licensing his technology, Armstrong gave his first public demonstration to the Institute of Radio Engineers on November 5, 1935. He made a broadcast transmission to the conference from the house of a local friend. Even though FM was a technical success, its implementation required a complete overhaul on broadcast station infrastructure. Armstrong's license request for a trial broadcast station was turned down by the FCC until he threatened to take FM abroad. He was then granted an FM license and launched the world's first FM broadcast station called Yankee Network in 1933 in Alpine, New Jersey. Armstrong's victory was short-lived. The FCC moved the FM service to a higher band of frequencies, rendering existing equipment obsolete. The FCC also reduced the maximum power level for FM stations after World War II, reducing the coverage area of each FM station. Additionally, companies selling FM receivers ignored Armstrong's patents and essentially stole his technology. Years of unsuccessful legal battles with big corporations took a toll on his health and finances. His wife left him, and the companies profiting from his patents left him defeated. This led to Armstrong committing suicide on the night of January 31, 1954. Armstrong's wife, Marion, continued to fight his legal battles alongside Armstrong's lawyer, Dana Raymond. She won millions of dollars in damages over the next several years. Today, Armstrong has gained massive recognition for his innovations. He joined the ITU's pantheon of telecommunications pioneers alongside Ampere, Faraday, Hertz, Marconi, and others. He also added to the Consumer Electronics Hall of Fame and was awarded the Franklin Medal in 1941 and the U.S. Medal of Merit. Armstrong is and forever will be among the greatest pioneers of modern-day broadcasting.
Thank you, Duke, for introducing us to Edwin Armstrong. What an impact he had on our world. Most agree that summertime is made for barbecue, but the folks at Jack's Barbecue believe Central Texas barbecue is for every day of the year, where traditional dry rub, low and slow clean wood smoking, and sauce on the side is food meant for the soul. Here is student Lauren Toy's report on a Southern tradition in our own backyard.
Right. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, Central Texas barbecue is different. The people that settled Central Texas, well, there's a lot of people that settled Central Texas, but they had this big investment group in Germany that set over all these German settlers in the 1800s, 1840s. I read a book about it, the history of their settlement, and Czechs and Hungarians, but they set up all these little towns around Austin, like New Braunfels and Fredericksburg, little German towns that are still there, that have German restaurants in them and whatnot. and they opened up butcher shops. They weren't like Southern guys who were taking, you know, cheap cuts of meat and saucing them up and all that kind of stuff. They would just smoke the cuts of meat that didn't sell quickly to make them last longer at a butcher shop. So very simple rub, salt and pepper, fire. They had offset smokers, so they didn't have smoke houses where the smoke was inside and whatnot. They had a clean burning wood fire on one side and the meat on the other side. I go to these little towns where these famous places are. My favorite's Louis Miller's in Taylor, Texas. And that's, you know, 3 generations old. Started as a butcher shop, like I said. That's super delicious. There's a place out in the country called Salt Lick that's beloved. It's been there for a generation and a half or so. There's a place in Elgin, Texas, Southside Market, that's, I think it's been owned by the same family for 140 years. You know, there's 3 famous places in Lockhart, Texas: Black, Smitty's, and Kreutz. Kreutz or Kreutz, you know, spelled Kreutz, pronounced Kreutz, like a German pronunciation. And they're old places with old brick ovens. Well, there's a lot of people that use offset smokers, I think, you know, around the country. I know some people, though, think that the smoke itself that you can see is what adds the flavor to the barbecue. And it's not. It's the invisible gases coming off a clean burning wood fire that actually have the flavor. And so when you burn the wood, and in Central Texas they burned wood. They didn't have coals, they didn't have a smoldering fire so much. They had a clean burning wood fire because they had plenty of wood, post oak from around that region. And so when you keep the fire burning clean, you have less of the dark smoke that you see, which is creosote and bitter, and actually harms the flavor of the barbecue. If you have a clean burning wood fire, that air is moving through there quickly, like a convection oven. I think the briskets, I'd say, are 12 to 14 hours, and the beef ribs are about 12 hours. Beef short plate ribs. Pork shoulders are a little longer than that. You know, they're pretty thick cut of meat. Pork ribs are probably 6 hours or so. You know, it depends on how thick they are too. Chickens, you know, 3-4 hours. Sausages, a couple of hours. Cheddar jalapeno sausage, you don't want that cheese to melt too much, so you don't put it in the hottest part of the pit, you know. Turkeys, I'm gonna say those are 10, 12 hours. We're doing 120 turkeys tomorrow night before Thanksgiving. Barbecue is very soulful. You know, and it's the most soulful of soul foods. And people come in here and they have an experience, and it's amazing how heartfelt they get about it when they eat it and they like it. And they're like, oh my God, like this is so wonderful and it's so important to them. And you know, for a lot of them who've eaten barbecue growing up, you know, wherever they're from, it's like a fond memory, and they really enjoy it. It's kind of special. For me, it's been fun, because when you move away from where you grew up, the 2 things you really miss are the food and the people. This is what you always think about. You know, if you're from Chicago, you always talked about pizza or whatever, or New York, or, you know, you're from Texas, you miss barbecue. And so here I have a barbecue restaurant, and I get to eat barbecue, you know, every day, and the guys in the kitchen are making Tex-Mex food. And Texans and Southerners come here every day to eat, so I get to talk to them. So it's been really, really fun for me to experience, you know, my roots all over again.
Yum! That makes me hungry for barbecue. That wraps up this episode of College Vision News. We heard the latest staff and student news, learned about Stage Blood, and talked with Tim Trussler about the Online Learning Center. We learned about Edwin Armstrong, a broadcasting pioneer, and finally, we got a visual taste of Central Texas barbecue. College Vision News was created and developed by the broadcast video production students at Bates Technical College. Today's show was produced by Duke Pukasem and Giovanni Kavumbi. On behalf of the BVP studio crew, thanks for watching.